So especially in healthcare, even IoT is used majorly, where actually IoT devices will be sending a lot of telemetry or streaming data, and we can leverage serverless computing to process the data because uh, especially serverless computing is more used in unpredictable workloads actually. Actually, for predictable workloads, definitely we go with the provisioned thing. But the main advantage that we get with serverless computing is unpredictable workloads. So for this hour, we get this much amount of load, but there is no guarantee that the next hour we get this much amount of load actually. So that's why actually serverless is preferred in the scenarios, and especially IoT devices in the healthcare will be sending a lot of data for data processing, for which we can use serverless computing, uh, uh, where actually and it can be even leveraged at the edge computing area, or it can be leveraged at the cloud computing area, and even we can store that in the database as Praveen was mentioning. Like even database also can be considered as serverless, where actually only the storage there will be pricing charged, but database, how the pricing charge for serverless will be like only depends upon the query execution. Only for that particular time only the for the bill will be charged for the database areas. So in that way, IoT devices and streaming data can be processed in healthcare, and similarly health record of patients, clinical trail data processing also can be leveraged with serverless computing. And even actually, I'll tell you one use case that we have done 4 years back for one of the big. It is a life sciences thing for one pharma industry, where we use serverless computing to do some kind of machine learning models to predict actually some detection of some diseases actually in a particular patient's history record. So that has been done by clinical trials data, similarly health record of patients, historical data, and so that data was processed through a lambda layer for event-driven processing. And similarly, we have used kind of SageMaker, which is actually Amazon SageMaker. There is a kind of ML service actually that is also serverless. And we store the data in DynamoDB, and we leverage the DynamoDB streams to actually trigger the Lambda. So that kind of thing we have used. So this is what one major pharma industry actually. And that is one thing. And similarly, in healthcare, even video conferencing between the patients and doctors, and doctors and pharmacists. So these will be going predominantly, and similarly, remote monitoring of healthcare integrated. So these can be actually, this kind of system can be built with serverless computing that brings a lot of benefits in reduced operational cost. Because when we go with provision capacity for this, we can't determine the workload of this, and the provision capacity unnecessarily charges for the ID levels also. So serverless computing can actually charge only for the particular hours where the process has been executed. So these type of things we can actually leverage serverless computing.
So I think like these are few other examples, like the use cases in different domains apart from the healthcare. So basically, even we had a few great customers in the live video broadcasting, right? As you mentioned, IoT, right? Non-healthcare customers also, like there are a lot of IoT devices data that is coming, and we are using a lot of serverless framework. For example, on AWS, I think you have rightly mentioned about one of the use case where we are using Redshift along with the Lambda triggers, right? So uh, can you figure tell like more about the couple of other use cases, maybe more on data engineering and analytics, which you covered right away, but again the event-based automations, right? Maybe why don't you put more light on that?
Yeah, sure. For example, when we consider actually the serverless based analytics in AWS, uh, earlier we used to go with the kind of Spark based transformations or Hadoop based transformations, either running in EMR or Databricks. With the Glue, actually, AWS Glue is a serverless a Spark computing area. So it will only charge for the compute area, compute power, only for the job that is running. So Glue is one of the famous serverless computing in AWS. So similarly, Redshift serverless, which has come from Redshift, earlier we used to bring data either from S3 and store in Redshift. We create some pipelines, and there in Redshift that used to be like a warehouse, data warehouse, where we do some aggregations and do the analytics on the data actually by running some queries. But with Redshift serverless, even with Redshifts in classic Redshift also this feature has come, but Redshift serverless is more powerful. Where in Redshift serverless we need not bring the data to Redshift. Still, the data can be there in Aurora database or RDS, where it can still from Redshift serverless we can query the data that is there in RDS and do the analytics. So this will actually eliminate or reduce the latency in bringing the data from RDS to Redshift. So we don't need to create the pipelines and all that. So this type of approach is called federated query approach. So from Redshift only, we can actually query the data on Aurora or RDS, and we don't need to bring the data to. So these type of analytics features are, which is actually becoming more and more dynamic. Similarly, even EMR is one of the managed cluster provided by AWS. It is not a serverless, but it is a managed cluster. But from managed service, we can connect to Redshift serverless directly without writing any connectors or anything. So it has an inbuilt connectors. So those type of data analytics features have come. And similarly, in one of the very popular thing we do in this kind of video broadcasting or image analytics, compression of the image is very popular service actually, because more the images, to reduce the storage space, we compress the image and store it.
Yeah, even the elastic transcoder, right? I think the video transcoder.
Correct. Yeah, that is also one service. And this type of image decompressions, next to broadcasting client, and similarly encoding the video data, like as you are telling, like transcoding and all that. So these are all actually various serverless options that brings many advantages to us, which reduces the operational overhead and reduces the latency and increase the performance.